Hey, what's up everybody? I'm back with Chrono Clock. As you can see, what I did is I went through and completed the DD route and the Machida route. And I kind of wish I had recorded me playing the Machida route because it was a lot, the story development was a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. But it's already done. Today I'm here to do the repeat that opens up when you complete all the girls' routes and gives you the chance to go out with Chronos. That's what I'm excited about. That's what I want to see. Hopefully, it's worth the wait of having to go through all of those routes just to get to the ability to go out with Chronos. So I won't talk anymore. Let's just get into it. Let's find out what happens. Thus the clock advances. Tick tock, tick tock. Thus time advances. To everything there is a season, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to laugh, and a time to weep, a time to every purpose under heaven. Tick tock, tick tock. An unchanging tempo. Time never turns back and never skips forward. That's the rule of this world. As such, being capable of breaking that rule has to be called a god, like Chronos. Oh, look at that! The scenery is actually moving. It's not like a picture. I found myself pondering these idle thoughts over as I rode the monorail, grasping the handlebar. It really wasn't that amazing a story. I was merely returning from my date with my girlfriend. At a time like this, I feel as elated as I did was only natural. In other words, the fun times went by so quickly that they almost felt like time wasted afterwards. The summer sunset really leaves an impression. Despite trying to play it cool, I couldn't wipe the grin off my face. At the beginning of the summer, I decided to make it my goal to get a girlfriend, and after many twists and turns, I'd finally arrived at this moment. More so than landing on the moon, it was kind of a thing that could make a person feel like they'd shaken hands with a Martian. The train slowed down as it neared the station. I told my girlfriend, sitting quietly in front of me, that we were getting off soon. She looked up at me and displayed the kind of happy smile that could melt any man's heart in a second. I told myself not to get too excited, but all the same I wondered if, perhaps, my guardian angel had helped me in my time of need. Congratulations on becoming a real man, Ray. I could die happy right now. Be careful what you wish for. At that moment, my idiotic mumbling, spoken at the point of time when I was at the very peak of a roller coaster track about to plummet to Earth. At that moment, our final story centered on Chronos' clock again. A story stretching from the beginning of summer, where my fate was changed and my life was saved, until the time I stared death in the face once more. A story of everyone striving for their own happily ever after. The moment I heard the voice, there was a sudden violent crash. Had I not been holding on to the handlebar at that instant, I would have been sent flying. An earthquake? That was my first thought, but that turned out to not be the case. Huh? I put my hand on my aching arm and looked around, stunned. The world had been broken, or more accurately, that absolute rule known as time had come to a halt. I couldn't understand the situation, but I was undeniably experiencing it. The previous jolt didn't happen because of an earthquake. Because time stopped for everything but me, it was a law of inertia that nearly threw me to the floor. If the monorail had been going full speed, after flying down the length of the car I was in, I quite possibly could have broken an arm or even been killed. A chill ran up my spine as I nearly stepped off the edge of the cliff. But what truly terrified me was something of a different kind. I noticed it. Crow's form, floating in the air looking down on me, looked strangely familiar. However, it wasn't the usual adorable face that I saw. Her expression was frozen in place. Crow?
私の名はクロノス。時の神。人の言葉と定義において、お前たち人間が私をそう知覚していることを理解している。
My mind, racked with confusion, could only fully understand two things at that moment. My mind was predisposed to understand them. Firstly, I understood that the sight before me was not the crow I knew. This was the bona fide goddess of time. Secondly, I understood that I was going to die here. As if it had been imprinted on my brain with a branding iron, the word die and all its implications became clear to me. A being which defied human logic had appeared before me without any warning, leaving me in a situation that was mysterious and incomprehensible. Why? That question fell from my lips, even when I had no idea who in particular it was directed at. The goddess of Sage remained unwavering.
人間はなぜという疑問に答えるために生きている。それを私は媒介を通して知っている。だからお前が死ぬ理由をお前に納得できる形で定義することはできない。
I felt a shiver of fear. Even my usual smart self couldn't make a cheesy quip while being stared down by a terrifying existence like Chronos. We were talking to each other. We were talking at each other, not to each other. There was no mutual understanding. She wasn't answering my questions to confirm anything. She only spoke on the slightest whim. I didn't understand what exactly was happening, but I understood that the instant this conversation was over, I would be killed. Is this because there's bad things in my future ahead? There wasn't any particular reason for me to be killed at this point in time, so I wondered if the goddess of time before my eyes sought to kill me based on something from the future. Then, is a descendant of mine going to destroy the world or something? Huh?
お前やその子孫が世界を滅ぼすというのは比喩でしかない。世界を人間が最大限観測できるこの次元そのものと定義しても、それが滅んだところで私には何の影響もない。よって世界が滅ぶことはない。
Her speech was arcane and cryptic, but she was more or less telling me that even if the world were to be destroyed, she was a goddess, so she didn't give any concern to it. Then there isn't a real reason?
そうだ。講義においては理由がない。納得できないことを理解した上でなら、お前は偶然死ぬというのが最も近い原因と伝えることは可能である。それでよいか。
She wasn't actually asking for my consent. Regardless of whether I said yes or no, it would be all over the instant I gave her an answer. I mean, what could I even do about all this? Even if I held my tongue, I would be killed. If I came up with another question to try to understand things better, that would still only be delaying the inevitable. Well, I needed to hold her attention. The only reason I was even alive right now was sheer luck. But in my confusion-addled mind, I'm screwed, aren't I? I was so busy beating myself up over the things of no importance that the conversation had grown to a halt. And then the world before me turned white. Nothing happened. The deafening silence was broken only by the cries of the cicadas. I could sense that the abnormal presence had disappeared, and the sounds of normal life had recommenced. Huh? I fearfully opened my eyes. Somehow I was back in front of my house. It was once again a peaceful and hot afternoon, and I was standing there alone in a stupor. What? exclaiming out loud as if I were Dee Dee, I could practically see the question mark pop over my head. Is this the afterlife? No, it can't be. These surroundings are familiar as ever. I whipped my head back and forth to verify I was still alive, but I didn't have any injuries to show. The only remnant from the ordeal was the cold sweat running down my spine. Was my imagination playing tricks on me? The daydream was too bizarre for words. I was irritated enough to want to scream at the quote-unquote goddess to get out of my dream. I just hoped that whole part with my girlfriend wasn't a dream too. Then I heard a strange voice. In my haze of confusion, I completely failed to notice the girl next to me clad in a school uniform. She was staring into and at nothing. She looked so small and delicate. How could someone be so adorable? Huh? Wait a minute. I didn't recognize her at first since her hair was braided. She wore unfamiliar clothes and also wasn't floating above me, but this was... Crow? Her appearance was totally different. Crow was looking up at me with eyes like saucepans. Crow opened her mouth to say something, but no coherent statement came out. It was weird enough that she was wearing a school uniform and standing on solid ground, but... Hey! Explain to me what's going on here! I mean, your explanations are usually worthless, but... Can't you help me out this once? Crow suddenly took a huge inward breath. And then coughed. Hey, what happened? Are you alright? Despite my exasperation, I patted Crow on the back and she coughed. The second I touched her, she jumped away from me in surprise. Whoa there! I didn't mean to touch you in any kind of way, so no need to be shocked about it. Did I just touch Crow? I couldn't believe it. Huh? I just touched you, didn't I? I could still feel her body's heat on my fingertips, but more importantly, Crow's breathing was still quite ragged. What the heck happened to you? Crow looked as if she was about to cry as she told me what had happened. I had a mountain of questions to ask Crow, but I didn't want to bother anyone else in the neighborhood, so I took her inside. Crow opened and closed her hands while repeating a mantra of words to herself as if she were invoking a curse, though she sounded a lot more like a radio announcer doing a mic check. Are you telling me you have absolutely no understanding of human senses? Then give me an explanation. Hey! She decided to ignore me. Since Crow wasn't helping at all, I fished through my pocket to see if I could find something more useful. Inside were my wallet, the pocket watch, and my phone, the usual suspects. From what I could tell, there was no problem with the pocket watch. As for my phone, checking the date and time on my phone, the memories immediately came rushing back. Are you kidding me right now? At first I thought this was some weird sort of deja vu, but the time and day displayed were right around when I was nearly hit by that truck, give or take a minute. In other words, today was when I made use of the watch's power for the very first time, and the date of my first encounter with Crow as well. Which meant Makoto had yet to drop her lunchbox, and Miu had yet to make her initial attempt at confessing to Shuji. So everything that happened on the monorail wasn't a dream after all. Crow muttered as if she were building on my own train of thought. Then I started to understand what had become of Crow's other form. Crow, did you send me back in time in order to save me? Is that why you're not a goddess anymore? Crow gave a quiet chuckle, almost as if she were castigating herself. Crow, about the goddess Chronos, are you both different beings? Torn a what now?
この世界とコミュニケーションを成立させるために意図的に自分を小さく切り分けたのだ。神という存在は大きすぎて小さき人間の世界を知覚することができない。だから人間と同じ耳でその声を聞き、人間と同じ目で物を見るために自分の一部を小さく切り分けた。それが我が輩だ。
Like an interpreter? Crow did say that this part of her existed so that she might have the power to communicate with this world, but I never could have imagined she existed for that purpose only. So, that must mean that you defied the main body, which was trying to kill me, and trying to save me got you sacked, so to speak.
俗物的な例えだが、そういうことだろう。とっさのこととはいえ、自分を拒絶すると呆れたことだ。
Crow looked a bit gloomy, but given the situation, she seemed surprisingly calm. She always had a bit of a carefree personality. I'm not complaining or anything, but why did you save me? And also, why did I have to die in the first place? No, actually, the first thing I should say is thank you. What's with that face? Why was she glaring at me for thanking her?
お主のその妙な義理堅さに我輩も気の迷いを起こしてしまったのだろうな。
Well, thanks. At least I got something out of all the effort I put into being polite and showing thanks in my everyday life. In other words, it was because she liked me. That kind of made me happy.
それより、お主が殺されなくてはならない理由だったな。わからん。
You don't know even what your other self was thinking? That's awfully disappointing.
常々お主は失礼だな。切り離された今の我輩にはわからんが、理由がないことが理由であったとしても驚かんよ。
As I cocked my head to the side, Crow did the same in response and gestured to the ground.
お主は歩いているとき、草や虫、それよりも小さな微生物を常に避けて歩くか？
Well, I make an effort not to step on the flowers, but I'm not that much of a tree hugger or anything. At the moment I had a hunch of what Crow was about to say. Hey, you're not going to say that I was almost crushed underfoot by Chronos because our paths happened to overlap, are you?
知らんが、それくらい尺度が違うということだ。
I guess nearly being hit by a truck or even being hit in the head by a meteorite would be good examples of that. I still couldn't believe it. Then I heard Machina's voice from inside the building. It was unusual to hear her shouting like that. There were still more questions that I wanted to ask Crow, but I was more worried about my little sister, perhaps due to my own overprotective nature. Machado? I went out onto the porch and then into the annex looking for Machado. Machado came out of my room. She would have probably jumped into my arms if she could see me, but rather she was turning her head to and fro, trying to figure out where I was. I moved closer and took her by the hand. What are you yelling for? Crow had evidently followed me inside, stepping awkwardly into the hallway after me. Hmm? Oh, right. I guess you would be able to see her, hear her now. Wait, something's not right here. Stay. Cute. That non sequitur took a second to fully sink in, making me do a double take. What was that? Why, little... Giving Machado a flick on the forehead, I went back to thinking about the present state of affairs. I understand that you can hear Crow's voice now, but how do you know her name too? Come to think of it, I do remember. Machado pushing me down, both of us breaking the pocket watch, being mutually recognized as keepers of the watch. The precious memories we made with little Machado. I remembered, but when did that all happen? My time fell out of joint. But then I suddenly realized that girlfriend I had been with on the monorail, I couldn't remember her face. Was that Machado? From the start I had no recollection at all of having a girlfriend. Machado. Do you remember the violin contest with Masaki? I see your knack for conveniently altering your own memories to suit your wishful thinking hasn't changed. In any case, it seemed Machado did remember the whole affair with that contest. I also remembered something that went on between Makoto and I that involved another pocket watch, and on top of that, something that a wedding with Didi came to mind as well. Was this a confluence of memory? Though somehow I didn't have any memories of dating Miu. That was kind of sad. I glanced out the window at the bright blue sky. Nice weather we're having today too. This is all your fault though. Machado tilted her head. Of course she'd be confused, all things considered. With a sigh of resignation, I took out my phone. This must have meant that the other girls had mixed up memories too, the same way Machado did. I'll explain once everyone is here. And so, when I thought about it, considering the date, I realized I wouldn't have any of the girls' phone numbers yet. So I had Machado call the dynamic duo of first years, and within the same moment, Makoto showed up at our house as well. With all that in mind, we decided to congregate at Central Park. For some reason I couldn't quite discern, I found the phrase First Assembly of It's All Ray's Fault Club floating to my mind. I had to pray that there wouldn't be a second one. Oh. So I guess Didi wouldn't have left the UK yet by now. Her timing was as horrendous as always. What a cutie. Anyway, returning to the issue at hand. I had already explained the gist of the situation to everyone. Masaki spoke up loudly in protest, evidently still confused about everything. Crow had become the center of attention, could only shrug her shoulders.
我が輩に聞くな。他に誰に聞けって言うのよ。というか、なんであなたに聞かないといけないの？
Oh, now that you mention it, Masaki, I guess you never knew about Chrono before. Michiro can fill you in on that later.
私も黒さんとは初対面ですが、いいでしょうか。
Mia raised her tiny hand, evidently having something to contribute.
お話にあった彼女をレイ先輩が認識できないということは、今は量子力学の重なり合った状態のような感じなんだと思うんです。みーちゃん、何それ？重なり合った状態？レイ先輩が誰とお付き合いするのかが確定せずに揺らいでいるってことかな。今はまだその可能性がみんなにある。これでどう？難しいお話はよくわかりませんね。まとめ！みんながレイ君のこと好き好き大好きハーレム状態でもう一回用意ドンってことだね。わかりやすい。
Looks like Masaki doesn't have anything constructive to add to this conversation. That suited her, though. Besides, Makoto, why are you so elated about this anyway?
だってこの感じだと普通の女の子に私も混ぜてもらってるっぽいじゃん。
I know you have a weird idea of excitement, but now my stomach hurts. Harmu, yeah! I wish I could have shout that to the heavens, but since they all still had sincere feelings for me, I wasn't just caught between a rock and a hard place. I was surrounded by enough rocks and hard places to qualify it as a human demolition site. The Michiru loudly clapped her hands together.
でしたら、私以外の方は潔く身を引いてください。うわ、みちるちゃん、対応早っ。そうよ。別に私は先輩のことなんて気にならないけど、どうして彼女がみちるじゃなきゃいけないのよ。皆さん、よく考えてください。私と兄様が結ばれなければ、みちるはこの世に誕生することができないんですよ。あの可愛い子をこの世界に祝福してあげずにどうするのですか？人質？ちょっとみちる、子供を盾にするのは卑怯よ。ああ、一応だが、それぞれの時空のご主人とお主らは何も問題なくむつまじく過ごしているはずだぞ。そうなんですか？そうではないという感覚が我が輩にはないのだが、過去に戻って未来を変えられるということは時空が無限の枝になってるんですね。やっぱり私たち自身が確定されていない揺らぎそのものなんだ。みゆさん、せっかくまとめた話をまた小難しくするのをやめましょう。そうだね。ごめんね、みちるちゃん。ちょっと面白い話だったから。
The conversation went on without giving me any room for input, though that probably made it easier on me. It felt a bit weird, since I had memories of falling in love with all of these girls, but no memories of what happened afterwards with any of them. Even if those memories had all been just too good to last, like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, it would have been nice if I still remembered them. This is probably a bad time to ask, but can I go home now? Responsibility? Well, I'd love to do that, but do I just have to choose someone right now?
これまで通り末永くよろしくお願いいたします。ちょっと待ちなさい。待ちません。みちると私に限って言えば勝負ついてるでしょ。あんな兄様のお情けで判定勝ちしたようなコンクールでですか？
What kind of heartwarming scene is this? It's like they're having a mock fight with stuffed animals or something. In the midst of that chaos, Makoto was having quite a laugh.
もういっそ全員の頭を叩いて記憶喪失にでもなってもらった方がいいんじゃない？
Now look, We can't even solve this mess with words. What makes you think resorting to violence would solve it? Makoto, you're a brute, though I like that about you. Perhaps it was actually because of me that she was able to be her true self around the other people. I'll just have to make sure I don't cheat on anyone then. She was seriously freaking me out. I had to turn away. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that Mio and Crow were ignoring us and talking about something else. Then Mio came over to me. That face of yours is kind of scaring me. What's up? Mustn't what? This about the whole girlfriend thing? Mio's serious demeanor caused Makoto, as well as the bickering Michiru and Masaki, to stop talking and turn their attention to her. There's no need to be worrying about that now, though. Huh? Yeah, well, it's not too complicated, at least. In other words, if we ended up creating the same situation again, my future wouldn't change. I had escaped the goddess once by traveling back in time to a point where I wasn't dating anyone yet. Hence, if I found myself in the same situation again, Crow wouldn't be able to help me and I would die for sure. Well, if you put it that way, should I still go out with someone but stop using the monorail? Would that be safe? Michiru and Masaki were clearly quite dismayed at this troubling news. With the mood from earlier having changed drastically, everyone else put their heads together and started debating what to do next. Good grief. I didn't even notice Makoto standing next to me until she said something. Well, it's all my problem, so there's no point in panicking about it. Plus, I don't have a specific solution in mind, and worrying about it isn't going to help me find one. More importantly, don't you want to join the others? Why not? Makoto's indifferent attitude was even more mysterious than the situation I found myself in. In response to my question, Makoto showed me a smile brimming with confidence. Guess she didn't have any particular reason. A few hours later, having failed to come up with any bombshell solutions or insights for my newfound problem, we all went our separate ways. All the same, Crow, Makoto, and I ended up leaving earlier than the others. We wanted to continue the discussion in a follow-up meeting of sorts. I tried to play it cool earlier, but riding the monorail this evening, I couldn't calm myself down. I found myself being vigilant for any sort of omen. If Mia was right in declaring that I would be safe as long as I didn't get a girlfriend, I'd probably be fine, but the safest option would be not to ride the monorail at all. But in this city, not riding the monorail would be extraordinarily inconvenient. I held onto the strap hanging from the ceiling for dear life, having no idea if the train would screech to a sudden stop. I feel like I'm worrying too much, but I can't shake the memory of it at all either. I gnashed my teeth while muttering anxiously to myself. Meanwhile, as for the person beside me, the monorail shook back and forth as it traced the gentle line of the tracks, and Crow matched the shaking by waving her whole body back and forth like a balancing toy. You really should hold on to one of the straps or the railing.
楽しんでるように見えるけど、人の目だと揺れとはこのような感触だったのだな。
Crow muttered with intense fascination. Evidently discovering human sensations was a lot of fun to her.
ちょっと車両の先頭に行ってみてもよいか?
Just stay still. Is she a child? Though even if all the accumulated knowledge she had, one could say Crow was literally akin to a child born a few hours ago. The awkwardness she displayed reminded me of when I had to watch over Michiru all the time, back when she lost her sight.
ところで、ご主人。
Wow.
お主、あの場では意図的に口にしていないことがあるだろう。
I thought about it for a moment. Well, I've been pretty curious about why you were in a school uniform when you became a human.
これは人間の女子が着ている服として最も統一されている姿を我が輩が模しただけであろう。
I'd say school uniforms are a perfect representation of that image.
分かっていてはぐらかしておらぬか?
What do you mean?
レイ君が神様に殺されちゃうっていうのがクロちゃんの時計の副作用なのかどうかってことでしょ?
Hey, I was trying to steer clear of that minefield. Don't go diving into it on my behalf.
女は度胸.
I decided to ignore Makoto's oversimplified aphorism. Crow was glaring at me.
気づいていなかったわけではあるまい。
I guess you're right. The handrail gave a creak as I shifted more of my weight into it. I'm surprised Makoto figured that out, though.
そりゃ、私はクロちゃんの時計のことについてレイ君と同じくらい詳しいし。しかも、そこの女子は時計のせいで面倒ごとに巻き込まれていたからな。
Yeah, I think I remember that. Out of all the girls I knew, Makoto was the lone individual among them who had this sort of VIP status. Masaki and Miu hadn't even known about Crow or the watch before today. As for Michiru and Didi, while they were already in the know about those topics, my time travel ability hadn't been a part of their knowledge. And the one who knew everything was Makoto. There was also the fact that everyone was completely unaware of Makoto's incident, except for the time she'd smashed that window. But to them, that had been carried out by a doppelganger posing as Misaki. Well, I do understand how all this happened. Probably happened because I got involved with Crow and her watch. I paused for a moment, thinking about how to phrase this. But that said, I also know that it's all thanks to her watch that I'm even alive at all right now. Yeah, that was supposed to have happened today. I first realized the power within Crow's watch when I was almost run down by a truck. So I can understand why my involvement with the watch is why I'm at risk of dying, but I wouldn't be alive right now if I didn't have it with me. And besides, this is going to be embarrassing to say, but I wondered if it was better not to say this, but Crow and Makoto were staring at me expectantly, so I let out a sigh and continued. I feel like I'm doing a lot more with my life than I was ever before I met Crow. Probably because I very nearly got killed. So instead of blaming Crow for everything that's happened, I guess I should be grateful to her instead. That was enough. It really was embarrassing to say.
頭に中身の詰まっていない意見にも聞こえるのだが。
Makoto agreed with me right away, but Crow was not so easily convinced.
どうだろうね。まあ、レイ君はどこか変だし、そういう考えもありなんじゃない？ご主人がおかしいのは今に始まったことではないか。
For the record, I don't have any sort of death wish, okay? I felt the need to make that announcement, since Makoto seemed about ready to order me to commit harakiri, and I had no interest in wanting to cut my own stomach open. Though speaking of stomachs, I suddenly heard a low growling noise. Crow glanced down at her abdomen with a look of confusion. Oh, I guess your stomach's empty.
いっぱい食べさせてあげなきゃね。そうか。これが空腹で食事によるエネルギー補給が必要な合図か。人の身は不便なものだ。
Crow muttered pathetically to herself. For the rest of the day, at least, it was probably more important to take care of Crow's needs as a human being than to worry about my own problems. Our house had no shortage of extra rooms, and was more than able to accommodate an unexpected guest. While I'd always taken that for granted, I found myself oddly thankful for that now. Once the monorail pulled into the closest station, I called Makoto over for a word in private. Hey Makoto, have a favor to ask?
なんじゃらほい。
Could you look after Crow?
うちで預かってくれってこと？
No, that's not it.
あ、そっか。無知なクロちゃんにいろいろなことしちゃうチャンスだもんね。レイ君はエロいな。
Honestly, Makoto, sometimes I wonder why I'm still friends with you. After we threw the other pocket watch into the sea, we really did live happily ever after, right? Well, Makoto and I had no memories of what happened after that, so I could never know for sure. There are a lot of things that Crow doesn't understand about being human yet, so I want you to help her out if she's having trouble.
別に構わないけど、それってミチルちゃんか DD さんに頼む方が良くない？
Of course I'll let them handle it when she's at home, but as for when she isn't, you're the one who understands Crow and what she needs more than anyone else. And most importantly, you understand how terrifying her powers can be.
そういうことか。よく気が回るね。
Makoto seemed surprised and impressed to hear me say that. Well, I do like to plan things out, but I like flying by the seat of my pants even more.
すごく納得。
As we both continued to converse, Crow, who had gone on ahead of us, came running back to where we were.
はーい、ご主人、ご主人。預けてた切符をくれ。機械に切符を入れるのは楽しいのだ。というか、触れるだけであの機械を通れる魔法のカードを我が輩にも買ってくれ。
Crow waved her arms in the air like an excited child.
まあ、クロちゃんは人間になったことを満喫してるような気がするけどね。
Good grief. And so on and so forth. Night fell in a rather uneventful fashion. We entrusted Crow to our maids, a bunch of middle-aged women who loved to have guests. As a result, I didn't see her after returning to my room, since she would have been in the main wing of the house. To ensure my family didn't find out about her, she ate dinner separately from Michiru and me as well. It made sense to give her the same kind of treatment we gave little Michiru before. Crow undoubtedly received a warm welcome from the maids as well. I'd bet anything they were petting her head and pinching her cheeks for hours. So ultimately, there's pretty much no way she'll be staying in my room, I guess. I dreamed of living together with a beautiful girl, but in reality it's too cruel to allow such a dream to come true. Even when I tried to make it come true, Machida would meddle around behind my back to foil that plan, just like she did with Dee Dee. Times like this, I expect Crow to float down from the ceiling and chat with me for a little while. I was bored. What was I supposed to do from here on out? Makoto wouldn't drop her lunchbox this time around, and Mia wouldn't try to confess to Shuji again either, unless something drastically changed. All the other girls had already dealt with their own problems as well. In other words, beginning tomorrow, no particularly troublesome problems or accidents would spring up. Had I returned to the peaceful days from before I ever found Crow's pocket watch. Let me try that again. Had I returned to the peaceful days from before I ever found Crow's pocket watch? After all, I couldn't find a girlfriend this time around. Well, I guess I should sleep before I worry about any of that. Everything that had happened today had my head feeling weighed down with exhaustion. It wouldn't do any good to stay up late thinking about things. I'd always been told back when I was a boy to always get a reasonable amount of sleep. Setting my wake-up alarm on the phone, along with the automatic shutdown timer on my fan, I then turned out the lights. Good night. Sleep is what puts an end to the day. Sleep is the only time a person is freed from the need to think about anything and the need to feel anything. I could wax poetic about vague recollection of time spent in this womb, but in any case, lying in bed like this felt nice and cozy. Therefore, upon being awoken in the middle of the night, irritation was the very first thing I felt. I opened my eyes. What? I had expected to see Michiru, but it was actually Crow by the side of my bed. She stood there with an expression so listless. For a moment I actually did think she was a ghost. What? What are you doing? What's with those clothes? I wouldn't say they're weird. Cute seems more accurate. I almost wanted to ask her to go, "Nya," but she probably wouldn't wear that outfit again if she got self-conscious about it, so I held that thought. In any case, I grabbed the phone which lay beside my pillow. The screen glowed in the darkness like a firefly. It was 2 in the morning. You're up early? Or have you been awake this whole time? I meant it as a joke, but Crow gave me a serious nod. How to sleep? Crow stood there quietly and fidgeted nervously. What you mean? Are you insinuating that you want to sleep together with me? I'm joking. After all the time we spent together, I'm sure you already know that. I rubbed my eyes as I got up. Since it would be too bright, I didn't bother turning on the lights. The air felt tepid and warm, almost like the inside of a fish tank, and bright moonlight streamed through the window. Even during the wee small hours, the night was alive with the chattering of insects. Yep. I like the unique atmosphere these hot summer nights have to them. Crow gave a quiet sigh. Even if you don't know how to sleep, surely you must feel tired, right? I believe the correct term for that is loafing. I couldn't help but smile. I guess you're all hyped up from experiencing so many new sensations for the first time, aren't you?
食事や入浴というものはとても興味深いものだった。特に味というのはすごいな。食事はエネルギーへの変換に必要なだけのはずなのに、も複雑で表現しきれない感覚の数々には参った。お主ら人間が食事を生きる上で大事にしていることがよくわかったぞ。
Oh, so that's why you can't sleep. Well, I suppose the quality of life and the quality of food do go hand in hand, so it's pretty important to be grateful for having a well-stocked pantry. Somehow she sort of reminded me of Dee. Don't talk about that. Well, even if part of me is a little curious, we still shouldn't talk about that. I didn't really want to risk discovering a new fetish. Anyway, even if we don't have a reason to stay awake, sometimes we still have days where we can't go to sleep. That is so. I gave her a reassuring nod. Since Crow is practically equivalent to a newborn child, even if it kept me from sleeping, I decided it would be best to keep her company for a little while. Since we're up, you want to go outside?
外?
Even if it is pretty late, we can at least go look at the moon. We went out through the porch into the garden. Crow followed after me, like a duckling following its mother. The evening air, with no walls around to constrain it, felt much more exhilarating, though I could feel a slight chill to it. The thought occurred that since I had returned to the early days of summer, the peak of seasonal humidity had yet to come at this time of year. Crow breathed out a sigh of relief. I thought she wanted to talk about something, but she didn't say anything. I didn't want to rush her, so I waited in silence. There was all the time in the world. Crow walked aimlessly through the garden, looking at the ground and the trees around her. Then she stood at the edge of the pond and gazed up at the sky.
月が綺麗だ.
I could die now.
なんだ?
If you don't understand it, then don't worry about it.
そんな虐待もないことばかり言っているから面倒に巻き込まれるのだぞ.
I'll have to wash my tongue then.
後悔せん.
Crow finally cracked a smile at my jesting.
眠れん. いや、わずかにだが眠りには落ちた。だから眠るのが怖いのだ。
What do you mean? After I asked that question, I decided to soften it a little bit. No, I mean, you don't have to explain. But if there's something on your mind, I won't mind hearing you out. And if there's something you want to talk about, go ahead and talk about it.
ありがとう.
Returning her gaze to the moon above, Crow nodded obediently. She was too darn cute, but I didn't want to ruin the mood by saying that out loud.
そう。どう言えばいいのだろう。眠ることそのものが怖かったのではない。目が覚めた時、時間がそのまま続いていたことが怖かったのだ。神でいるうちは物事に意味などなかった。生きていることも死んでいることもどちらも我が輩にとっては等価だった。上も下も成功も失敗も笑顔も悲しみも何もかも興味はあったが価値はなかった。好きな時に好きな可能性を選べば良いだけのものだったからな。それが今は一つにつながってしまっている。眠れば意識のないうちに時間が過ぎる。命がこぼれ落ちていく。終わりが1秒ずつ近づいている。人間にとって時間がこれほど恐ろしいとは思わなかった。いや、分かっているのだ。人がそうやって生きていることは分かっている。
Crow craned her neck skywards in a trance-like state.
月が綺麗だ。
After Crow muttered that to herself, she went quiet. She reminded me of Princess Kaguya, awaiting the day when her royal entourage should come for her. I understood now. Crow didn't finish her train of thought, but what she was trying to say was easy to discern. Having been blessed with the gift of life, she had become afraid of death. It was another one of the same type of simple, beautiful anxieties a child would have. Today, Crow had experienced a great deal of wonderful and enjoyable things she'd never had a chance to experience before now. Swaying with the movements of the train, tasting a well-prepared meal, all that could be experienced with the five senses. Hence, the thought of all those things being taken away had scared her. I didn't voice my thoughts out loud. I took a deep breath. The night was very, very still. and the early summer air felt quite pleasant.
何か言うことはないのか?
Crow evidently couldn't bear the silence, as she was the first to speak up. Huh? No. There's not much I can say.
おい、少しは悩んでいる我が輩を慰めようとは思わんのか?
Looks like someone else besides me has a knack for saying useless things too.
お主という人間をずっと見てきたせいでな。
Well, I'm flattered. At least Crow hadn't been there to see all the different ways I could act like a total loser after the incident with Mew. She wasn't the type to wallow in self-pity either. Crow was the type of person who, when reading manga or watching a TV show, would wonder why the protagonist was sitting around agonizing over a problem that could probably be solved in 5 seconds. Though if all of the problems in fictional media like that were solved right away, everything went back to normal, and everyone lived happily ever after, that wouldn't be very interesting at all. I was serious when I said there's not much I can say about that, though. You're not stupid for feeling that way, Crow, and I understand why you don't want to sleep by yourself. So now that you understand what it means to be afraid of something, I guess you could say I'm happy to hear that. I smiled. Crow returned a blank stare.
なるほど。難しいものだ。
Crow returned a slight smile of her own. It seemed a little lonely, though. I guess I much prefer to see girls wearing great big summery smiles. I mulled that over while trying not to let Crow see through me. I wouldn't be able to convince her of everything right away. There was no perfect solution to this dilemma of hers, and the longer one were to search for the solution, the more of a problem it would become. To continue living, despite the dilemmas and regrets carried upon your back, is only human. I knew I wouldn't be able to convince Crow of that necessity right away, since she had never been human until today. Death is quite a frightening thing. Everyone suffers anxiety about that at some point, but back when I was a kid, how was I able to overcome that anxiety? I couldn't quite remember, but surely it must have been my parents being there for me. I got it! I finally realized what it was that Crow did not have. Crow! I called her name while holding out my hand.
その手は何だ?
Never mind that, just stick out your hand too.
なんじゃ、似合わぬ猫なで声を出しおって。
More like, I'm being nice about it. I just want you to hold my hand.
主のことだから、下心があるのだろ?
Oh, chill out. I probably have about 40% malicious intent at most. Well, it still rounds down to 0.
素直すぎるのもどうかと思うぞ。
Heaving a sigh, Crow hesitantly took my hand. Unlike Machiru, Crow seemed to have quite a high body temperature. The warmth of her touch was just like that of a child. In addition, her hand was slightly trembling. It seemed like she was nervous about touching another human being. What Crow did not have was the warmth of another's touch. When I was a child, it was my parents' physical contact that did more to quell my anxieties than any soft-spoken words could ever do. The unfamiliar touch of my hand made Crow crouch down timidly in place, a perplexed look on her face. Crow, I'll give you a charm to help you sleep. From now on, I'm sure you'll have a lot of fears and a lot of anxieties. Not at all. Whenever you may run into those things, I'll be sure to lend you a hand no matter what. That's a promise. Oh. What's with you? What are you freaking out about? I'm just giving you my word that I'll protect you when things get tough. Chrome mumbled with a strange sort of expression. But the tension had disappeared from her body and the lines in her face had softened. Alright then. I think we should go back to sleep now.
そうだな。
We held hands as we went back to the house. I glanced up at the evening sky one more time. There was good weather on the horizon. That was something I could be confident in knowing. One hour on the dot, and the first chapter is over. What timing? Alright, with that, we'll go ahead and see what the next day is. Tomorrow, hopefully. I plan on posting the next video tomorrow. If I don't, it'll be the day after. Anyway, it's so far it's interesting. Apparently something happens that gets us killed on that monorail, potentially. And so we just have to completely change the events that unfolded to the point where that calamity won't happen again. Seems easy enough, right?